and so on. So this is how far you can get with these apps. So you can do really interesting things like games on ChatGPT, and it's not just about putting UI in the agent. It is about making sure that the agent becomes part of the UI. Because I have seen a lot of gimmicky demos where they put chess, but then what is the AI doing with chess? But when the
Did you
AI
really need it in that case?
exactly, yeah, it's not like it's an orchestrator to display or playing Doom. Yeah, you can, but why? I mean, why do you have to put Doom inside ChatGPT? It's fun as a demo, but I'm really interested in these use cases where you can actually make it interactive with the UI, the AI and the UI. So the agent becomes part of the UI and they interact together. In this case, ChatGPT becomes my dungeon master, and I send a prompt, so it changes personality. I take pictures, and at the end it creates a summary. So as you can see, there is like a level of use cases that are enabled by just the fact that you can return any UI when you are conversing with an agent like ChatGPT or Claude.
Right.
So these are the examples. I mean, there are many other examples that you can take a look. Postman supports all of the flavors. It supports ChatGPT, MCP UI, and MCP apps now, where you can test, you can debug what's going on. Like in this case, for example, MCP sends the size of the iframe, so I need to know what the size is, or if he sends notifications, or if he sends another tool call. All of the nice UX, UI things that you are familiar with Postman for debugging are here. And you can actually, it's a very good user experience. Like the forms and things that you are used with Postman for testing are available on MCP.
Right.
I'll stop here sharing, and then there you go.
Yeah, so something I'm curious about, like, oh, go ahead, Roy, go on.
Oh, you were saying something, please.
No, go on. I say things all the time.
So what I wonder if people realize, there's two parts to it, right? There is the MCP server, which returns the HTML or the UI. And then there's the MCP client that needs to be compatible to render this. Can you tell us a bit more about how, as a developer, you're sort of working with these two fronts?
On the client side, I mean, how to develop it on the client side?
Yeah, so on the client side, the HTML needs to be rendered, or the UI.
Yeah,
right.
That, of course, needs work. Like, is it using micro front ends, or how does it actually render?
Oh, okay. Let's go. Yeah, let's do a technical deep dive. Interesting is it's not as complex as you might think. It is an iframe, and iframes are cool. They work. And we were looking at when we were looking at MCP UI, we were looking at different rendering methods and using remote DOM. And eventually, when MCP apps became standard, well, we just went with the iframe, which is the initial and most basic way of rendering. And there are two reasons for that. One is security. When I mentioned earlier that I had to convince a lot of people, especially security inside Postman, to let me deploy this in production, is because you are loading untrusted code into your application. So you need some sandboxing. And the best sandbox that we found was a double iframe architecture, where you can sandbox the inner iframe and the external one will just protect it. So you can have your CSP, content security policy, that you are not allowing a bunch of things. That interesting is because when we designed this for MCP UI for that demo back in July, we thought, well, this is the best solution. And then when ChatGPT released it, they used the same solution. I mean, of course, they didn't copy or anything, but we agreed that the sandboxing on an iframe was the best solution for this case. And also now MCP apps is official. That's the solution still. So it's validated that the iframe was the best option right now. And we are discussing on more options, like native and a bunch of other things. But for now, it's an iframe. So you get the text.
How interesting that, essentially a technology that is pretty old, right? Iframes.
Yeah.
And
yes.
if a concept comes back around and is used in something like this, in that way, I was smirking when you talked about the sandboxing, because it was bringing back old memories of iframes nested in iframes and some of the constraints around that. And it's interesting that it happened to apply really well to this use case,
Yes, and I had to actually work on this part of the security. That was my contribution to MCP UI because, again, for hosts that don't have problems with content security policies, is fine. But Postman is an application that is an enterprise application. We cannot just
Right.
YOLO and let anything render inside. We had to make sure that was like
Yeah.
watertight security. And I'm
Yes.
glad that that was selected as the option, and I'm glad that we got the blessing from also OpenAI and Anthropic that that was the best solution in that case. Kudos to the MCP UI guys, by the way. I mean, they are the ones who built all of this. I'm just a passenger on the ride. I'm just helping. They came up with the solution. So
Right. No, that and that's super cool. Now, funny enough, now that you've pointed out what that is, yes, I have, unbeknownst to myself, I have absolutely used this before, but I did not realize that it was the MCP apps underneath the hood that was actually powering it. Now, I do have a question here. I want to put you on the spot a little bit. How are you familiar with Copilot Kit?
yes.
How similar is this? Similar? Does it just look in some ways, or are they a competitor? I don't know. Actually, I'm very curious on that standpoint because I know they're also in the business of like this kind of like agentic UI kind of thing.
Awesome. I mean, I just gave a conference talk at MCP Connect in Paris last week about this because there is a lot of confusion. Yeah, there's a lot of confusion about what the Copilot Kit guys are doing, what MCP apps are.
Yeah.
And I can explain. So basically, it is two types of UI rendering for agents. And the question that you need to answer first to understand this is who owns the host, in this case, the client. If you own the client, like if I'm building a brand new chatbot and I have control of the front end and I want to build some UI interactions with that front end and the agent, well, I can just build it myself. I have control of the code. I can just create my own components.
That's right.
And Copilot Kit, they provide a very good integrations and framework for you to help you build these agents. So if you think about it, like when you're building an agent and you're building this interface on and the agent loop that does all of the tool calls, well, Copilot Kit is also helping you. Okay, now if this tool call happens, you can also return some UI and do something on that side.
Okay.
That's the first, what I call first party UI. So first party UI is you own the client, you own the server, you control everything. You can build everything around that agentic experience yourself, and you have full control. Now, if you move to like third-party UI, like if you are not ChatGPT, let's imagine Booking.com wants to implement UI to display inside ChatGPT. ChatGPT will have to build a Booking.com integration themselves, and the problem is not just Booking.com; it's 100,000 other companies that want to integrate with ChatGPT.
That would never scale, right? They're never going to be able to build all that stuff. Yeah.
So the difference is for third-party UI is when you have a host that becomes like the super app. And this concept of the super app is very interesting because I don't know what's going to happen if that's going to be the case in the future, where you only have one app, in this case, a super app like ChatGPT, and everybody else interfaces and connects to that super app via MCP apps or in this case, ChatGPT apps. Now, it's very interesting. Not sure if that's going to happen. It will be interesting to see in the future that everything that you do on the web will be interfacing with a super app, like a super agent, like ChatGPT. That's what some people are predicting, or that's maybe what's going to happen. I think it's going to be a hybrid. One thing I don't like is there are so many chatbots everywhere. I mean, injecting the chatbot into the website, it was like something to put AI. But I think there is something beyond just chatbots. I think there is a new way of user interaction where MCP apps and a few other paradigms that I'm looking at will be enabling that agent to human collaboration. And I'm talking about collaboration. I'm not talking about just displaying some nice, pictures and things. Collaboration is the key. So yeah, that's the difference.
By that, actually, I have an idea in my head of what that means, but when you say collaboration, you're talking agent collaboration. What are the particular things that you are thinking of?
There is an MCP app that is very popular right now that was developed by someone from Anthropic, Anton, I think from Anthropic, who created a ScaliDraw MCP app where you can connect it to Claude or ChatGPT. It's an MCP app, so you can connect it to anything. and you can say, hey, explain this topic and create a diagram for me.
Right.
And it's very cool to see that it opens a full screen website on Scalidraw, and it starts streaming all of these boxes and arrows, and you can see how it starts building this diagram, right? And it is very cool. Now you can say, oh, change this, and then it will change it, and it starts like, okay, let's change the diagram, let's add them here, let's move this box, let's change this arrow. That's one example of the collaboration. It's not quite there, by the way. Like, it's the very early stages of what I'm talking about.
Right.
Another example is, I don't know if you have used the canvas on ChatGPT, but if you haven't, basically on ChatGPT, you can say, I want to create a document, but instead of creating a document on like Markdown, it creates a canvas where it's like a doc, like a Google Doc style interaction, where you can highlight some of the paragraphs and say,
Yes.
hey, change this. And then ChatGPT within the same canvas will just change that. It will just
Yes.
replace it. And you can
Yes.
go back and forth with the AI, just interacting and collaborating. That's what I'm referring to in terms of what's the next level of the user interaction, collaboration user interaction. Because, yeah, like dashboards and UI that shows things are really cool. But as we mentioned before with the game, was sometimes you are not using all the power of the LLM. Like the LLM is a new raw power, an operating system that you are not using it if you are just saying, hey, display this nice dashboard.
Right.
Is when you become like a bi-directional communication between the two, when you can ask ChatGPT to generate things on your behalf and then update in real time on that UI that you can see as a human, that becomes a really interesting collaboration and interaction. This is great. I mean, I wanted to talk about this because it's something I've been thinking. So,
well, no, and
great question.
and funny enough to that, to your point earlier about chatbots. I was just doing a talk like a week ago, and I made a similar point with regard to like chatbots are great. There's actually some really excellent chatbot experiences out there, and I think for certain industries it makes a lot of sense. There are some also really absolutely terrible chatbot experiences out there as well, and I hope they do improve. But like, it's not the only vector, right? It's not the only way that we can interact. And I've personally been exploring things like this. Funny enough, I had a conversation. The Copilot Kit thing is kind of interesting because I was just talking to someone from Copilot Kit the other day, and it inspired me to take a different direction in an app I was working on. Right, and it's a whole different, and so instead of having like a chat interaction, it's more of like, hey, I'm gonna ask the LLM things, but it's gonna give me these structured JSON responses that then build out these UI components. Right. And it does it on the fly. So it's up to the agent and what happens with it. This is where I think it gets super cool and I geek out. Right. This is for like an astronomy app, right? You can ask it to like, talk about the solar system or planets or, black holes, things like that. But every once in a while, you ask it a question, but it responds with multiple components and kind of goes off on its own a little bit. And you end up with an experience that I did not create. Right. And it works. And it's very cool. Like, to me, I see that kind of stuff and I get excited because I'm like, that's like that kind of agentic interaction is what I like. That's my hope. Right. That's like the hopeful thing that like kind of augmenting. I know we're getting a bit off topic, but it's one of those things that I get excited about this. Right. This is the kind of stuff that I think that this is what agents can really help us with in a lot of ways.
It's not off topic. I mean, this is what I've been looking at, which is generative UI. So we talked about the first party versus third party. That's just like the delivery mechanism. But when we go beyond and we talk about these generative UI experiences that you're describing, there are different levels of this, by the way. So the thing is, we used to just return some static components that you design. But that's, as you mentioned, you are not letting the agent be creative and do surprising things. Like in this astronomy example, where we're like, oh, he came up with this idea of just putting things in different places. These systems, the AI agents, are very creative and they can produce really interesting results if you give them the environment to do that. So the next level would be, okay, we are returning some UI that is static, but apart from the collaboration, also for like dashboards or visualizations, how do we let the agent be creative and produce really good UI? And actually the Copilot Kit guys have really good implementations on this declarative generative UI, where you can just give it a bunch of components, like the Lego blocks. So basically you give the agent, here are the Lego blocks that you can play with. And there is a JSON representation of those Lego blocks that you can change. And those Lego blocks will be assembled and they look in this particular way once you play with them. That's the declarative way. So in this case, it's still consistent because you gave it, the LLM some building blocks that are accessible and they look like your brand. So it's not completely crazy full YOLO mode. So you get that consistency. But the agents are very creative at assembling these Lego blocks and showing you a generative UI that you could not even imagine that it was possible. And the endpoint, like the final destination, is the demo that I showed you earlier with the weather. That's completely generated by the agent.
Right.
Like that is the HTML, CSS, JavaScript, all generated on the fly.
Yeah.
And I think it's cool for a demo because it's like, well, they can write better JavaScript and CSS and everything than me. The agents can write today better React code than me. And I don't mind, it's fine.
It's okay. I'm with
it's
you.
okay. But then if we let them do that, they can create really crazy UIs on the fly very fast as well. The problem with that is with the concerns of reliability, like are you getting good output, and also that the consistency is not there, like your brand and your design system is not there. So we are in the middle ground right now, which is with the declarative way, where you can just give it a little bit of freedom within the constraints. But I hope that in the future, I mean, you never know, like this moves so fast. I hope that in the future, we will figure out a way that agents can still provide on-the-fly results that are consistent, but they are completely brand new. And I'll give you a crazy example right now that someone told me last week, and I thought, actually, have you seen this world-building AI where they create like a video, but it becomes a video game, so you can interact with it? What's the Google one? Is it Genie? Where it basically generates a world out of nothing. All of this basically looks like a video, but you interact with it with a video game. That's what is possible, like that's where things are going. So you could imagine very well in a few years where you still have the constraints of what the UI should look like with the design system, but you can create entire visualization, entire worlds, entire different interactions for humans to play with and to do visual things. Like generative video is another example. That is crazy how you can get consistent results about generative video. So we are not quite there. We are on this middle ground where the one that you play with your app, which is you give it a little bit of freedom, but you still get consistent results. But I hope in a few years we get some crazy generative UI, world building, popping things up of nothing, which is possible, but we're not quite there yet. That's more like a visionary mindset. It's not actually practical yet.
Yes. Yeah, agreed. Yeah, and I'll actually be curious too. Like, one of the things I've definitely observed is we're at this stage now where you can create some really interesting and wonderful experiences, like what you were just talking about, and they have this eye-popping wow experience when you first get in, but as you start to get any real depth, they start to fall apart a bit, right? And then it takes some work to actually get them to where it's not just a demo anymore, right? Or something like that. So it's it's just, I think it's a matter of time, right? So I'm curious. So given this discussion and everything, like and you've shown us some demos and some examples of some of the stuff that Postman can do. Like, what kind of use cases for the MCP UI and stuff, like, what are you seeing, like, from other folks that are not Postman, what are folks building, right? Do you have any kind of idea or kind of like feel on that?
Yes. So I've been talking to a lot of people, and also from Postman, we know. So there are two camps right now, especially with MCP apps and ChatGPT apps, is the consumer-friendly apps, especially ChatGPT. They are getting a lot of traction. So a lot of people are thinking about ChatGPT apps as the new app store, where you're going to get a lot of users, like consumers. If you want your brand to be there, if you want to sell online, you need to be there. So I see a lot of companies and a lot of people building for consumer-facing apps. In this case, for ChatGPT. The other one is not just for ChatGPT for MCP apps, but MCP itself is the enterprise use case. MCP had like a big, massive hype cycle, and people think that the hype has died down. That's not true. It's not that it's died down. It's that the real use cases are being applied in enterprise.
Yeah.
Like most of the applications on MCP and most of the things that people are enabling via MCP, apart from a few user-facing servers that we see out there that are the popular ones, are in the enterprise. Every single enterprise I know, they have an MCP server now that surfaces their CI/CD information, that surfaces their company data information, that enables agents to connect securely with authentication to a lot of system of records that they didn't want to allow before, or they could not allow agents to access because they didn't have this model where you can securely via authentication and also via enabling multiple systems of record to connect. So the biggest use case right now I see on MCP is enterprise. And on the MCP side is for enterprise use cases, data visualization. The Scali Draw example is another example of a really nice enterprise use case or like developer use case. At the moment, it's just about imagination. If there is something that you can collaborate with the agent, if there is something that you can display in like a dashboard that is easier to consume than a just wall of text, that's where MCP apps become very useful for enterprise. So we have these two sides. We have the user consumer side on ChatGPT apps, and also we have this enterprise use case when we have where we have a lot of usage on enterprise data. Visualizations are potentially one of the main use cases there.
Okay. Yeah. You know, it's funny. If you would have asked me 2 years ago or 2.5 years ago or whatever, now it feels like it's been forever since, ChatGPT kind of exploded on the stage. I don't think I would have ever thought we would be in a place where consumer apps were starting to be powered through ChatGPT.
Yes.
That's very interesting, actually.
Yeah, I didn't see it coming, but yeah, it is. There is a big space there, and we probably will see increasing even more.
Yeah, and Roy, I'm going to actually put you on the spot here for a moment. Ruben's talking about these enterprise use cases with MCP and such, and I mean, I personally, I'm not much on the enterprise end, but I know just from talking to folks, various conferences and things like that, there seems like there was this lag, right? There was this initial lag of like, say, like automotive and medical and certain types of professions that seem like they weren't quite adopting a lot of the agentic and Gen AI stuff, but a lot of that's security based and PII based, and like they have to be super, super careful, right, about how they're using it. But I've been talking to a ton of people now who are in those industries who are actually starting to tackle these things. But the key thing, and especially around MCP, was security, enterprise, all this kind of stuff, and starting to productionize this stuff. Like, are we? I guess I'm asking more from like a watsonx data from an IBM standpoint. Are we seeing this on our end? I don't know if I'm putting you on the spot. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely seeing this. I guess the more people are saying MCP is the new API, the more security comes into play. So I'm actually maintaining a repo with all the MCP servers that IBM products are building. And everyone is doing this thing where either the MCP app, the MCP server is completely local, and it's up to you to make sure whatever it does is not going to leak to the internet, or they're completely remote and they're sort of reusing the security mechanisms that they use for their other APIs. So in a way, I feel a lot of these concerns are being tackled. We have an open source MCP gateway called Context Forge that some people in IBM are building that's helping you to tackle some of these enterprise use cases. So I think in general, people are doing all of this. But yeah, security remains a concern. And I think we did this in the pre-chat. So Ruben, there was another technology that you influenced me on, not just MCP UI, but also another technology. And this was around the new year. And maybe David, you can guess which technology this was.
Oh, geez.
It
I'm
has,
not sure. I don't know which
It's
one
all
you're
about
referring to.
security.
What is it?
we're talking
So
about
I think
security.
around the new year, I think I saw Ruben posting about some personal bot he was interacting with through his Telegram or WhatsApp. I don't remember which one he used. So Ruben was the first one that got me hooked on CloudBot, now OpenClaw.
Oh, okay, okay.
OpenClaw.
And it's all about security as well, right? I mean,
Yes.
Yeah.
the creator is also saying, if you think about security, you can't have nice things. It has to go wrong maybe before it goes right. But if we only care
That's
about
great.
security, then are we going to end up in a good place? And I believe they're fixing all those potential security gaps and potential vulnerabilities now. But I think security remains a big threat. And for big enterprises, it's relevant. For
sure.
people like us, we like to have fun as well.
Yeah.
It might be it might not be that important at the first stage.
Yeah, you know, and to that, by the way, I have definitely noticed an increase in my own deployed apps of attempted prompt injection attacks and all sorts of things that are now happening on a scale that I didn't quite see before. So even though, you know, you could argue whether or not that's relevant to, say, something you're doing, you know, in a backend MCP call or something, but with, I don't know, with agents hooked up to these things, if you have a potential bad actor who is in fact trying to do things, and agents can iterate on stuff very quickly, potentially, and come at things, you know, some from pretty interesting attack vectors and such. So, I mean, as much as I like to write fun apps and I get to build fun apps, I'm finding that I'm having to batten down the hatches a bit on anything that I dare deploy anymore.
I can share some of stuff on OpenClaw. I was pretty early on that, and actually I had a few discussions with Peter, the creator, even before he created OpenClaw. So I saw it being born, and it was very interesting in terms of the thing that blew my mind when it came out. And again, it was pretty early for me. It was that it could do things, and I think that's a tagline. You know, like AI can do things, and I would like to add a little. The disclaimer is if you let it to, like if you allow it to do things. And that's the thing, like if you allow it to do everything, and you give it permissions to everything, it can do amazing things. And I think that was the thing that OpenClaw demonstrated to the world, that LLMs are very powerful. They can do a lot of things, and they can do a lot of things very well if they have the environment to do it. And that's the reason it was very successful. And the one thing relevant to our discussion on OpenClaw, apart from the security, which is you know, there are issues there, like yes, not just prompt injection, but granular access, like deploying it safely on the enterprise, you know, like traces and auditing trails. All of these things are not fun. The fun is letting C do something crazy. Like for example, I think I'm on the OpenClaw homepage with one of my testimonials back in December. Was like I was trying to connect it to Google Gmail or something, and it couldn't find it. I wasn't authenticated, and I saw my browser pop up, and I was logged onto the Google Cloud Console, and I was like, oh, the Google Cloud Console is open. Let me just provision my own token. And you went through the process on GCP. Clicked on the right places, provisioning new token, and I think at the end I managed to, like, it got blocked because I don't remember if it was like a two-factor authentication something, but if it wouldn't, like, if he didn't stop, he would provision his own token to access my Gmail, which I thought
that
blew my mind. And I was like, okay, this is amazing, this is great, this is doing things that I could never ever imagine it could do. You know, like sorting a lot of tax folders for me. That was another thing. So I knew it could do things. Now, relevant to this discussion, apart from the security, is there is a discussion between like CLIs versus MCP, which I know Peter is a big proponent of CLIs, and I think I understand. I didn't understand very well before. I was like, no, MCP, it has to be MCP. Now, the thing with the CLIs is agents are very good at using them. So, of course, it's easier for them to do that. So for certain tasks, CLIs are definitely going to be more context efficient. They will be faster. They will be agents will be able to do way more things with CLIs. Now the difference or the problem here, and I'm not saying either CLI or MCP, we don't know yet where is it going to go, but it is the problems that we have not solved in terms of security, granular permissions, audit trails, all of these things. CLIs are great, but as long as you are authenticated to the CLI, and that CLI has to run locally in a machine that needs to have access to Bash and to,
Right.
we are letting the agent do a lot of things, which is very cool.
Yeah.
So I believe CLIs are very powerful. The killer use case here in MCP is the authentication, authorization, granular controls, and also, if you think about it, you need to build a CLI for all of these use cases. So what are you going to build? Are you building an MCP or are you building a CLI? And that's going to be an interesting question. There is a project by Peter, actually, which wraps MCP service in a CLI. It's called MCP Porter. But for that to work, you need an MCP. So it's like, at some point, we will need to choose what's the best way or the most secure and efficient way for agents to do things. We have two camps right now. MCPs can do it with very good granular controls and authentication, but they have problems with context, and we're trying to solve those problems. CLIs are more efficient, but then the CLIs are like a machine gun. You're giving them a super powerful weapon to the agent that they can do anything with. So I might be wrong. Definitely, Pete said that I'm wrong. I mean, he called me out. He said, you're wrong. I don't think MCP is the way to go. He has very strong opinions on that.
I think there's a little of both, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, he said I was wrong. And I think he ended up being right in terms of, yes, agents are more efficient working with CLIs, more context efficient with CLIs. But then the gap here is, how are we going to make those agents do secure things? How are you going to give granular access controls to things that are by design, enterprise use cases where you need to make sure that you have the proper controls in place? So maybe, I don't know what they're going to do there. In the meantime, well, if you have an MCP, you can wrap it into a CLI and it also works. But you need an MCP to start with. So you still have that problem. It's a very interesting discussion. I don't have a strong opinion yet because it's evolving very quickly. But it is definitely something that I understand it works and has been proven. So the OpenClaw was like a proof of concept that you can make things like these LLMs work and do stuff. So very early. I mean, this is only like 2 months, 3 months project. So
yeah,
it was crazy. But so that was the relevant part with the MCPs and CLIs that I thought we'd mention in terms of what OpenClaw is doing with CLIs.
Awesome. Well, hey, one last thing I want to ask you as we come up to our time here. That ChatGPT game that you built, like what kind of traction? Like how much? Is your server being hammered, or how's it going?
So funny enough, I didn't pursue this. It was more like a hackathon project. I never submitted to like a ChatGPT official app. I hope someone builds it. It's very interesting. I played myself with a few people in New York, and we went out and asked for things, and it turned into a very interesting game. So I see the potential. It's just I think someone else has to build it. I didn't really pursue like making it like production ready. It was more like a proof of concept. But it's a very cool game, so I hope someone builds it.
Well,
and I'll be playing
it. It's inspired me. Now that I know that's an option, I have some thoughts. So I'm very curious to see. So with that, well, thank you, Ruben and Roy, for coming on. This was an awesome conversation. I really enjoyed this. And I hope we get to talk to you again in the future, and we'll see kind of where Postman is in a little bit. But super exciting to hear like how Postman has evolved in our new kind of AI world and everything. And it's definitely given me some things to think about, because honestly, there was a time when I was working more directly a lot with APIs, right? And I was doing lots of Postman. Postman was just like the de facto standard way of doing it. And until recently, I did not know that Postman had taken this direction, right? And so it's like really interesting to see what's going on in this space. and super relevant to a lot of the fun I've been having. So I'll have to take a look.
So can I leave you with those calls to action? So
Please, yes.
if you haven't used Postman for a long time, please do have a look. We have very good, cool stuff coming next week, actually. So do try the MCP inspector. So you're building MCP and MCP apps. We have our inspector. We also have Postman agent mode. Postman agent mode is a little agent, like chat agent, where you can create API, create tests. Basically, if you are familiar with Cursor working with your code, well,
Right.
Postman agent mode will help you work with your APIs.
That's
Anything cool about your APIs, Postman agent mode, especially the testing, like creating the tests. Like Postman is used as a testing tool for APIs. It will create those tests for you. It will organize your collections. Very powerful. And also the product I mentioned, Postman Flows, and soon to come the Astro AI project, where we are providing this drag and drop visual representation of workflows and agents.
Okay.
It's very interesting. Keep an eye on it. Is on. You can sign up for the waiting list to take a look. Astro AI. It is a very interesting product that we're launching very soon. So keep an eye on it. And any feedback, I'm part of the core team at Postman building the API client. So if you have any problems with Postman, let me know.
All right, so you all heard that. Make sure that you're hammering Ruben with all of you.
Let me know. Cool.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Roy, Ruben, and thank you all for watching The Flow. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Good.